The first thing we noticed wasn't Carly Vaughn. It was where her daughter kept standing. This story matters because a child shouldn't learn disappointment before the party even starts. Here's where she begins. The ribbon slipped through my fingers and brushed my wrist as the wind tugged at it. I tied it again, tighter this time, and stepped back. The courtyard looked right. The table was set. The cake was steady on its stand. The obstacle course I'd rented for $320 hummed softly, already inflated, already waiting. "Eliza," I called. "Slow down around the frosting." She burst through the back door in her socks, dress flaring when she spun. "Mom, is Grandma here yet?" "Not yet." I said. "She will be." She nodded, then ran straight to the gate. Not the chairs. Not the cake. The gate. She pressed her fingers through the metal bars and leaned forward, peering down the walkway. I checked my phone. No new messages. She said she'd come early. Eliza said, so she could help. I remember. I said, "Come help me with the plates." She didn't move. Maybe she's just parking. A car door slammed somewhere down the block. Eliza's shoulders lifted. Then nothing. I walked over and rested my hand on her back. "Hey." She looked up. "Did I do something wrong?" "No," I said. "You didn't." She nodded, but her eyes went back to the gate. From the outside, it probably looked like a normal pause. Balloons, sunshine, a child waiting. We could tell this wasn't a pause. It was the beginning of a pattern Carly hadn't named yet. "Aunt Beatrice is coming." "Right," Eliza said quietly. "Yes," I said. "She always comes." She leaned against my arm. "Okay." The gate stayed empty. The doorbell rang once, clean and hopeful. Eliza sprinted past me, socks sliding on the tile. "I've got it." I followed her to the door and watched her face change when it opened. "Oh," she said, small. "Hi, Aunt Beatrice." Beatrice bent down anyway, arms open. "There you are. Happy birthday. Sweetheart." She handed Eliza a bag tied with a bow she'd clearly redone twice. Eliza hugged her, then peeked past her shoulder toward the driveway. "Did Grandma come with you?" Beatrice straightened. Her mouth pressed thin for a second before she smiled again. "Not today, honey." "But look what I brought." Eliza nodded and stepped back inside. "I'm gonna put it with the other presents." When the door closed behind her, Beatrice set her purse down and lowered her voice. "They're not coming, are they?" My phone buzzed in my pocket like it had something to add. I didn't take it out. "No," I said. Beatrice exhaled and reached for my arm. "I'm sorry. Carly." Outside, the obstacle course hummed on, patient. The party filled in around us. Shoes by the door, juice boxes stacked crooked on the counter. A neighbor leaned over the fence with folding chairs and a smile that stayed a little too gentle. Eliza bounced with her friends, hair already coming loose. Every time the gate clicked, she glanced over. Every time it wasn't who she hoped for. Her shoulders dipped, just a bit. My phone buzzed again. I stepped into the kitchen and finally looked. A photo loaded slow, then clear. My mother at a long table, sunglasses on her head, Sloane laughing, glass raised, Marissa leaning in close, Julian between them, grinning. A vineyard sign in the background. The caption sat underneath, neat and confident. "Family always comes first." I locked the screen and slid the phone face down. "Eliza," I called, keeping my voice even, cake in 5. She ran over, cheeks flushed. "Did Grandma text you back yet?" "Not yet." I said. I wiped frosting off my thumb onto a napkin. "Go wash your hands." She did, then came back quieter. When the candles were lit, she leaned close and whispered, "If she forgot, it's okay. She forgets things sometimes." I nodded and took the photo anyway. Later, when gifts were opened and thank yous were said, Eliza stood by the table, Hands folded. Mom. I turned. Did Grandma forget my birthday? The music from the speaker kept playing. Outside, the obstacle course hummed on. After the last kid left, the courtyard went flat. Streamers sagged. One balloon knocked softly against the fence. Over and over. Eliza carried plates to the sink without being asked. You don't have to. I told her. I want to, she said. Careful, like she was trying not to tip something over inside herself. Beatrice hugged us both at the door. Call me tonight, she said to me. Anytime. When it was just us. I washed dishes while Eliza lined up her gifts on the table, straightening the bows. She paused, then looked up. I still had fun. I know. I said. I let the water run longer than it needed to. My phone buzzed against the counter. A message from my mother. Need $420 for a family emergency. Please transfer today. The timestamp sat there. Mid-afternoon. Right in the middle of cake and candles. I didn't answer. Eliza patted over and leaned against my leg. Can we watch a movie later? Yeah, I said. Pick one. She smiled and went to grab a blanket. I set the phone face down and dried my hands. Slow, like speed might make the message real. A week passed, long enough for the balloons to deflate and the frosting smell to fade from the trash, long enough for silence to start feeling intentional. The group chat lit up on a Tuesday morning while I was packing Eliza's lunch. Exciting news from Mom. I didn't open it right away. I cut the sandwich into triangles, slid apple slices into a container, added a note with a heart. My phone buzzed again. Then again. Sloan jumped in next. Venue confirmed. This is going to be amazing. I wiped my hands and finally tapped the screen. A message from my mother filled the top. Second chance, Sweet 16 for Sloan. Elegant. Grown up. She added a party popper emoji that felt louder than it should have. Marissa followed. Cost per guest is $2,650. Carly's covering Grandma's share since she's on a fixed income. I stared at the screen. A file popped up underneath. Sponsorship pledge. Pending confirmation. I opened it. My name sat there in bold letters. Primary backer. My job title underneath. Clean. Professional. Like I'd agreed to any of it. Eliza. I called, keeping my voice steady. Shoes on. She wandered in, hair still messy from sleep. Is that for work? Something like that. She leaned over the counter and squinted at the screen. Why is your picture there? I closed the file. It's nothing you need to worry about. Oh, she said, already distracted. I forgot my folder. When she left the room, I opened the file again. Scrolled slower this time. No signature. No approval. Just my name, waiting to be useful. That night, I thought I was being careful. I waited until Eliza was in her room before playing the voicemail my mother had left earlier. I stood at the sink, phone pressed to my ear, water running just enough to cover the sound. It's not like the kid will remember. My mother's voice said, breezy. Don't make this a whole thing. I hung up fast. Too late. Eliza stood in the doorway, pajama sleeves pulled over her hands. She didn't look upset, just quiet in a way that made my chest tighten. Mom, she said. Was that Grandma? I turned off the water. Yeah, you weren't supposed to hear that. She nodded once, like she was filing it away. She said I won't remember. I walked over and knelt. That's not true. She looked at the floor. Do I have to be better for her to like me? The words landed heavy, not loud, just exact. No, I said. You don't. She leaned into me, forehead against my shoulder. Okay. After she went to bed, I opened my laptop at the kitchen table. The budget file was still open from earlier. Rows of numbers, notes I'd stopped reading closely. Salon help, emergency rent, trip deposit, birthday gifts I couldn't afford. I added it up again, slower this time. $26,180, enough for braces, camp, breathing room. I closed the laptop and sat there with the screen dark, listening to the hum of the fridge. The house felt smaller than it had that morning. My phone lit up on the table. Mom again. I didn't open it. The kitchen was quiet the next morning. Eliza's cereal bowl sat half-finished. Milk gone warm. "I'm gonna grab my backpack," she said. "Don't forget my library book." "I won't." When the door closed behind her, I picked up my phone. Venmo opened faster than it should have. My mother's name was already there, like it had been waiting. I typed in $1. The memo line blinked. I wrote, "Congratulations." My thumb hovered, long enough to feel my pulse in it. Then I pressed send. The confirmation popped up. Clean. Final. I took a screenshot and saved it to a new folder. Boundaries. At work. I sent an email to the hotel listed on the pledge. Short, polite. Screenshots attached. My name had been used without permission. I hadn't agreed to sponsor anything. An hour later, a reply came back. "Thank you for letting us know. Your name will be removed immediately." I exhaled and leaned back in my chair. That evening, the doorbell rang at 8:47. Not a tap, a knock. Sharp, insistent. "Eliza." I called. "Stay in your room." The knocking came again, louder this time. I didn't move toward the door. I checked the peephole. My mother stood there, arms crossed. Sloane paced behind her. Marissa held up her phone, already recording. "Carly." My mother called through the door. "Open it." I stayed where I was. "It's late. This is family." Sloane snapped. "Don't do this." Eliza's door creaked behind me. I turned. She stood at the end of the hall, clutching her stuffed rabbit. "Go back to your room," I said, keeping my voice low. "Please." She hesitated, then nodded and disappeared. The knocking started again, harder. "You're embarrassing us," my mother said. "After everything we've done for you." A siren chirped outside. Then lights flashed blue against the walls. The knocking stopped. I opened the door when the officer asked. He was calm, tired-looking, polite. "We got a call about a dispute." He said, something about property being withheld. My mother stepped forward. "She's refusing to return family items. And she's been threatening." I held out my phone. Texts. The pledge file. The screenshot of the $1 payment. Dates. Times. The officer scanned, nodded once, then turned back to them. "This looks like a civil matter," he said, "and she's within her rights." Sloane scoffed. Marissa lowered her phone. They left without another word. I locked the door and leaned my forehead against it. My hands shook, then steadied. Eliza came back down the hall. "Are they gone?" "Yes," I said. "They are." She slipped her hand into mine. The call came the next afternoon while I was folding laundry on the couch. Socks in one pile, Eliza's shirts in another. "Carly," a man's voice said when I answered. "It's Howard. Your uncle." I hadn't heard from him in years. I sat down. "She called me first," he went on. "Wanted me to talk sense into you." I let that sit. "She did the same thing to your dad," he said. "Different details, same pressure, same story about family." My hands stilled. He never talked about it. He was tired, Howard said. All the time. Every time he tried to say no. She made it sound like betrayal. I stared at the wall. The paint still chipped near the outlet from when we moved in. "She'll move on now," he added. "She always does. Finds the next person who'll carry it." After we hung up, I folded the last shirt and placed it in Eliza's drawer. She watched from the doorway. "That your uncle?" She said. "Yeah." She nodded, thinking. "He sounds nice. He is." She climbed onto the bed and swung her legs. "Mom." "Yeah. I'm glad you didn't open the door." I sat beside her and smoothed her hair. Outside, the street stayed quiet. The letter went out on a Thursday. Certified, plain envelope. No emotion in it. Just dates, amounts, and what I was no longer willing to do. I didn't wait for a reply. A month later, Eliza turned 11 with a picnic by the river. No decorations, no schedule. Just sandwiches wrapped in paper and a cake I baked the night before. She kicked off her shoes and sat on the blanket. "I like this better," she said. "People come because they want to." "I know," I said. That night, I pinned her school project to the fridge, my hero, written in uneven marker, 2 stick figures holding hands. Underneath, 1 sentence. "My mom taught me that love doesn't hurt." I stood there longer than I meant to. The house felt different, quieter, not empty, clear. I started doing the math again, without emergencies, without last-minute transfers. $845 stayed where it belonged each month. Eliza's account grew slowly. So did my sleep. My phone still buzzed sometimes. I didn't rush to it anymore. I'm Carly Vaughn. I used to think being dependable meant being available. Now it means being present where it matters. If this moment landed with you, stay close. There's more like it here. We watched Carly step out of the role she'd been assigned and into one she chose, not loudly, not perfectly, just firmly enough to hold.